Chloe Crawford had been in the business for 5 years, and she was already an A-list star. No one knew she held a secret love for him in her heart. Through all the years, from her lowest point to her brightest moments, she had never forgotten him. I was with her through all the hard times, and I came to understand that I was just the supporting character. The supporting character in a romance novel, whose destiny is to be the final perfect touch for the protagonist's love story. But Chloe said, "If my life is a script, then for you, I have the power to tear that script to shreds." I believed her. Chloe was trending again. As an A-list star, that wasn't unusual, but this time she was trending with Julian Vance, a senior actor from the same agency. In her 5 years since debuting, she was like a prodigy sent from the heavens, radiant on stage and captivating in films, already holding a Best Actress award at such a young age. But she'd never been involved in a single romantic scandal. Her most iconic photo was one taken right after she stepped off a massive stage, the hem of her gown trailing behind her. The fans' screams were deafening. Light illuminated one side of her face, catching the fine beads of sweat sliding down her pale neck. Her eyes were full of fire, exuding a captivating charm, yet the other half of her face, bathed in shadow, was cold and detached, as ascetic as a silent goddess whom nothing could ever tempt. Half vibrant, half silent, she was the most dazzling light in the entire arena. People said Chloe was like the North Star, impossible to hold on to, impossible to catch. All you could feel was her distant, stunning beauty and a piercing cold. The hashtag Chloe and Julian was followed by a bright red, exploding tag. It was a clip from a press conference. For the first time, Chloe had turned down a major leading role to take a supporting part in the historical fantasy epic, The King's Command, to support Julian Vance in his first major acting role. In the video, a reporter asked Chloe, "What's your favorite line from the show?" She smiled softly. She played a female commander who conquered lands and devoted her life to the male lead. She turned her head, her gaze falling on Julian beside her. She only came up to his shoulder, yet she still bowed gracefully. It was as devout as the commander in the show, who was always kneeling before her king. Her almond eyes curved into a look of profound affection as she spoke. "I wish to be the brightest jewel in your royal crown, to conquer new lands and spread your glory, to be the most loyal of your young commanders. I wish to be as the stars are to the moon, ever by your side. And I wish for my name to be remembered alongside yours in the pages of history. I offer you my all, my young king." The entire room fell silent. Julian, playing along, reached out with a smile and gently ruffled the hair at her forehead. Their eyes met, and a gentle current seemed to pass between them. In an instant, the room erupted in screams. Camera flashes went off like fireworks as countless reporters shoved their microphones toward them. The video ended right there. The comments section was exploding, and even Chloe's own fans were ecstatic. If this isn't love, what is? The young king and his fierce commander, who wouldn't ship them? That look in Chloe's eyes, what could it be but love? After all these years, our girl finally has a crush. I unconsciously traced my finger over the screen. On it, Chloe's eyes were shining, holding an entire galaxy of stars I had never seen before. I let out a helpless sigh, leaned back in my chair in resignation, and wiped away a tear. So, this day had finally come. I knew the story long ago, ever since I was 15, a sophomore in high school. It felt like I had been dropped right into a novel. It was a classic romance novel. The heroine was Chloe, the undisputed A-list star and talented young actress, sharp and cold to the world, but reserving all her warmth for the hero, Julian Vance. She and Julian were destined for a reunion after years apart. They'd known each other in high school. Chloe came from a wealthy family, a true princess, and Julian was the handsome, charming art student who had transferred in. According to the script of her life, Chloe's family was supposed to suffer a major catastrophe during her senior year. The princess would fall from grace, and Julian was meant to be the one to save her from despair. Then, after he went abroad for various reasons, they would reunite years later, and Chloe would help him flourish in the entertainment industry, their love story celebrated by all. But in reality, Julian left the country much earlier than the story dictated, leaving while Chloe was still trying to get close to him, completely missing the downfall of the Crawford family. I was the one who held the 18-year-old girl who lost her parents overnight. I was the one who felt her sharp shoulder blades as I walked with her through that dark time. She had never been so helpless, her eyes red as she cried silently against my shoulder, clinging to me like I was her last hope. I watched her step back into the spotlight. She was always one of creation's finest works, and she was quickly discovered by the entertainment industry. I went to the premiere of her first film and watched her on the screen, covered in blood and mud, turn in the rain with a gaze as sharp as a blade. The audience around me gasped. I called her while she was walking the red carpet. "Chloe," I said, "I saw it." For her first live stage performance, I was in the center seats. The entire venue screamed for her. A sea of LED signs lit up with her name, and everyone chanted, "Chloe, Chloe." I knew then that she would never be my girl. I was lost in the crowd, smiling as I watched her command the stage, my heart filled with a bitter sense of helplessness. I walked with you through your darkest days, but I also knew your brilliant future didn't belong to me. Chloe. Chloe probably didn't know that I was the one who wrote the novel that The King's Command, Julian's big star vehicle, was based on. I wrote about the female commander, about her love and the political intrigue with the young king, but now I had to hear Chloe repeat those sweet words to Julian. "I am your sharpest sword, my king. Look upon these vast lands, and you will see my devotion." There were countless moments when I realized that no matter how long I stayed by her side, this brilliant girl would never be mine. But I wasn't asking for much. I just wanted her to be happy and safe. Ding. Time's up for the disposable supporting character. Time to shed the glory that was never yours to begin with. I slowly ate a bowl of soup, staring blankly at the freesias on the windowsill for a while. Then I went to my room and packed everything. I didn't have much, and it all fit perfectly into a small suitcase. I tried calling Chloe's phone several times. On the third try, someone finally picked up. It was her assistant. "Ethan, Chloe's in the middle of a costume change right now." Before she could finish, the phone was snatched away. I heard Chloe's voice as she walked away from the noise. "Hello." I wasn't planning on getting emotional, but hearing her crisp voice still made my heart ache. I looked up at the ceiling, thinking about the 10 years we'd spent together. Memories faded and then rushed back like the tide. I thought of her line, "My young king," and it felt like an unchangeable, fated path. After a moment's thought, I said, "Chloe, I'm leaving." She went silent for a beat, then said casually, "Oh, are you going on a trip to clear your head? Staying in the country or going abroad? Are you leaving in a few days? Just tell Susan. She can book the flights for you. Why don't you wait a couple of days? I can have my agent clear my schedule, and I'll come with you." I heard about this place with amazing views. The background noise on her end grew louder. Someone called out, "Ms. Crawford, we're ready to roll." She ignored them. I cut through her chatter. "No," I said, "I'm leaving you." I did my best to sound like an old friend saying a simple farewell. "Chloe, goodbye." After a moment of silence, I hung up. I've always been a coward. I was afraid she'd hear the tremor in my voice, and even more afraid she'd say, "Okay," with a sigh of relief. This small apartment was one we bought before Chloe became a huge star. I'd saved up a decent amount for my writing, enough for a down payment on a 2-bedroom place. We each had a small room. After she got famous, it wasn't suitable for her anymore. There was too much foot traffic, and the paparazzi could follow her easily. Her agent wouldn't let a story about her living with a man break while her career was on the rise. We explained over and over that we were just like family, but I knew it was a losing battle. For a brief time, I felt like I held a blazing star in my hands, but I was always painfully aware that she never belonged to me. She moved into a gated community with better security, and her schedule got busier every day. She used to call me all the time to talk about new scripts or a dance she was learning, but she just got too busy. Eventually, whenever I called, she'd be at an event, on set, or in rehearsal. She'd always call back when she was finished, her voice heavy with fatigue. I hated hearing how tired she was, so eventually, I just stopped calling. I don't have many friends here. After work at the publishing house, I'd just come home and write. When I wrote The King's Command, I gave the female commander a specific line. She would return on horseback through a blizzard, the grand royal city and her army behind her. She'd dismount and kneel in the snow before the young king, saying, "I am your sharpest sword. For you, my liege, I conquer." At that moment, I suddenly thought of Chloe. I wanted to be her sword and shield, too, but I couldn't do anything. All I could offer was a hug. According to the original story, Chloe was supposed to run into Julian when he auditioned at her agency. The book described their reunion like this. They met, but she remained impassive, walking past him with a light step as if he were a stranger. Secretly, however, she arranged for him to get the best possible contract and made sure the script for this guaranteed blockbuster landed in his hands. Her, who was always so bold, acting with such caution, led Julian to believe he had earned it all through his own merit, and he was pleased with himself. This press conference was the start of their romantic storyline. I had been by her side for so many years, and now the male lead had finally arrived. I finished up some work handovers in the small apartment, then dragged my suitcase to the door. When I opened it, I saw it was raining, and not lightly. Each drop felt like a dull ache in my chest. I was about to close the door to grab an umbrella when a force stopped it. A pale hand was braced against the doorframe, wrist slender, a beautiful silver ring on the middle finger. I opened the door, my heart pounding. Chloe was leaning against the doorway. It was pouring outside, and she was soaked. Her bangs clung to her forehead. The usual fire in her eyes was dimmed, and her almond eyes were downcast, tinged with red. She was still in her period costume from the set, the wide sleeves hastily bundled up. Rain dripped from the tip of her nose, making it look as if she were crying. She must have rushed over, because she was still slightly out of breath, her lips pressed into a pale line. There was a panicked look in her eyes, so different from her usual nonchalance. She looked like a child about to be abandoned. She looked at me stubbornly, her voice a little hoarse. She said my name, Ethan Hill. Where are you going? Rainwater traced her jawline and neck, disappearing into the damp collar of her costume. I paused for a moment. Did you just run from the set? She cut me off, looking up at me and asking again. Where are you going? I'm going back to Bay City. It's too loud here. I don't belong here anymore. I want to go back to Bay City and light fireworks on the beach at night. And I want to get some of that clam chowder from the old corner spot near my place. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the doorframe. She asked softly, and what about me? I saw people moving in the hallway. She was a huge star, and I worried about her being spotted by reporters or fans. I sighed, stepped aside, and motioned for her to come in. Even though she hadn't lived here in a very long time, her room and her closet were just as she'd left them. I urged her to take a hot shower. She glanced at me a few times, hesitating. It was both frustrating and funny. I told her I wouldn't leave while she was in the shower. Only then did she nod. Her phone was on silent, but missed calls and iMessage notifications kept lighting up the screen. Chloe glanced at it once, then flipped it face down on the coffee table and went into the bathroom with a change of clothes. I got a call from her assistant, who was frantically asking if Chloe was with me. I quietly confirmed she was, and told her not to worry, that Chloe would be back soon. The assistant sounded relieved. Then I called her agent and asked her to do damage control for any photos that might have been taken of her on the way over. Only a little time had passed after I made the calls. I found myself lost in thought. She really was a hard worker. You always hear stories about big stars being divas, but she was never like that. I accidentally played one of Chloe's new songs. Her voice, coming from my phone, was uncharacteristically tender, like a confession from the stars. You're at the center of my world, yet you don't seem to notice a thing. My greatest triumphs are a crown for you. But who could know this love that asks for nothing in return? My heart warmed as I listened. But then the live comments scrolled across the screen. Julian must have gotten the lead because Chloe pulled some strings. And this kind of hidden, patient love is the most moving. I felt a little embarrassed for my momentary wishful thinking. According to the story, this was how it was supposed to be. She wrote songs for him, paved the way for his career, and gave him the best of everything without him even realizing it. If her love in high school was as blazing as the sun, then now, tempered by hardship, it had become deeper and more subtle, like the sea shimmering under the moon. But it made sense for anyone to fall for Chloe, because she was just that good of a person. The song was slow and gentle, as if she were whispering in my ear, and I got completely lost in it. When I heard Chloe come out of the bathroom, I instinctively looked up and paused the music, feeling ridiculously guilty. Chloe had changed into a white t-shirt, the wide collar revealing the curve of her collarbone. Her hair was half dry, and the shower seemed to have relaxed her. Some of her usual easygoing nature returned. She heard the familiar melody, paused, and then a sly, fox-like smile spread across her face. Listening to my new song, I nodded. It's beautiful. She didn't say anything else, but a blush crept up the tips of her ears as she gave a nonchalant hum. The atmosphere suddenly grew heavy, and neither of us knew what to say. My train was leaving in a few hours, so I had to say goodbye. Next time, don't just run off like that. Everyone was really worried. Chloe usually hated being lectured, but this time she just listened quietly. I've already bought my ticket. It's raining, so don't bother seeing me off. If you ever think of me, and you happen to be passing through Bay City, you can look me up for a beer. I guess this is what parting was really like. Not a flood of tears, but a restrained effort to maintain the dignity of a friendship. She was silent for a long time. I sighed and stood up to leave, but as I walked past her, she grabbed my wrist. I won't look you up for a beer, and I won't just happen to be passing through Bay City. She looked up, her gaze stubborn, the corners of her eyes turning red. For a second, I thought she was going to cry. In all these years, after everything she'd been through, the only time I'd ever seen her cry was that afternoon she lost her parents, when she held onto me in silence. I patiently leaned down a little. Chloe, have you ever considered that you're just used to having me around? Back then, you would have accepted a hug from anyone. She froze, her face turning pale as if I'd slapped her. She stared right at me, practically gritting her teeth as she said, Ethan Hill, do you even have a heart? It could only have been you. It would only ever be you. Just as the moment turned tense, my phone rang. I have no idea how it happened, but my ringtone had changed to Chloe's new song, and the chorus filled the silence. My greatest triumphs are a crown for you, but who could know this love that asks for nothing in return? I felt a little awkward. Chloe was still gripping my wrist, so I answered the phone with my free hand. It was the production team for The King's Command. They had just announced the cast and held the press conference, and now that they'd started filming, they wanted me to come on as a consultant to help the screenwriters flesh out the story and fine-tune the plot. I hesitated. If I joined the production, I'd have to see Chloe and Julian all the time, and I was just trying to leave. The voice on the phone was very polite. We really want to do justice to your work and present the best possible version to the audience, so we would be honored if you would join us. In the end, I agreed. It suddenly occurred to me that Chloe didn't know I wrote the novel, but when I glanced down, I saw the lips she'd been pressing together were now curved into a small smile. She leaned back slightly, her expression relaxed, a light dancing in her exquisite eyes. She didn't seem surprised at all. I raised my voice slightly. You knew I wrote The King's Command? She remained perfectly composed, curled up on the sofa with her long legs bent to avoid the coffee table. She said languidly, Mr. Uncrossable Hill, I look forward to working with you. It was just like that summer years ago, when she sat by the window, the air filled with the sound of cicadas. The profile of the young girl was full of charm as she smiled and said, So it's Ethan Hill. It's a pleasure to meet you. She was always like this. She never really needed my help for anything. I told Chloe that on set, we had to keep our distance, act like we didn't know each other. She looked up and gave a very reluctant, oh. The King's Command was about a prince's rise to the throne. Julian Vance played the lead, Prince Kalen. The female lead was his childhood sweetheart, the daughter of the Chancellor. The second love interest was an enemy princess, and the third was the female commander played by Chloe. Her part wasn't large. It really seemed like she'd taken the role just to support Julian. The production team set me up with a room at their hotel. I had just finished unpacking and was leaving my room when I ran into Sophia Pierce, the actress playing the female lead. She'd started acting in college and had built a career with a reputation for being talented and professional. Coincidentally, she had also been in my department in college. Our names, Hill and Pierce, had been the source of a lot of jokes back then, something about a piercing hill or other nonsense. Sophia was wearing a face mask, revealing only her dark eyes. She had a serene kind of aura. She seemed surprised to see me for a second, but then she must have remembered something her agent told her. Her eyes crinkled into a smile above the mask. So it really is you. Long time no see, Ethan Hill. Combined with previous sentence. Yeah, it has been a while, I said. It was the afternoon, and the cast was having a table read to go over the script and work on their characters before filming began. She looked at me. Perfect timing. We can walk over together. I had no reason to refuse, so I nodded. Sophia and I had been casual acquaintances in college, the kind who just nod in the hallway. She had a pleasant, easy way of talking, so it wasn't awkward reconnecting now. When we walked into the room, almost everyone was already there. It was easy to spot Chloe, slouched lazily in a corner in a black hoodie, one hand resting on her script. Her eyes flickered up, landing first on me, then shifting to Sophia beside me. The corners of her mouth turned down in a look of distinct displeasure. Once everyone had arrived, they went around the table introducing their characters. I hadn't seen Julian in a long time. He looked even cleaner cut in person than in photos. When our eyes met, he gave me a small, unsurprised smile, the perfect image of an approachable young star. They started running lines. It was time for the first meeting between Chloe's character, the commander Lyra, and Julian's character, Prince Kalen. Lyra wasn't from a noble family. She'd had a miserable childhood, living as a street urchin, fighting with beggars for scraps of food. Until the prince appeared, a sliver of light in her hopeless life. Feeling the immense gap between their stations, she resolved to join the army, to fight her way up, to become someone worthy of serving him. This scene was their first encounter, when she was just a teenager, beaten and left for dead in the muddy rain, only to see the prince's magnificent carriage, adorned with golden bells, pass by. Chloe slipped into character instantly. She was still wearing her casual sweatshirt, but as she sat up straighter with the script, her expression transformed into that of the hopeless urchin dying in the rain. She was shivering, yet she fought to keep her eyes open, unwilling to give up, afraid that if she closed them, she would just become another corpse on the side of the road. Julian read his line from the script, leaning back lazily in his chair, perfectly capturing the pampered young prince. "Corbin," he called to his guard. "Why have we stopped?" It was Lyra, lying in the road, who blocked the royal carriage. The driver raised his whip to strike her. Prince Kalen lifted the heavy purple curtain of the carriage and glanced down, stopping the driver with a casual gesture. Julian delivered the line with the perfect air of princely detachment. "Never mind. It's just a beggar. Have someone take her to a physician. Leave a few dollars." Lyra could barely open her eyes against the downpour. All she could see was a corner of the magnificent carriage's curtain, hinting at the luxury within, a world untouched by the relentless rain. The elegant prince leaned out slightly and, with a single, effortless command, saved her life. Chloe read her line softly. The character, Lyra, lying wounded in the mud, barely able to see through the rain, asked with a boldness she shouldn't have possessed, as if afraid this dream would shatter. Who are you?" The young prince gave a small smile, a mix of contempt and disbelief. He said nothing as the heavy purple curtain fell shut again. That was their first meeting. It became a dream Lyra would never forget. Chloe leaned back, and in an instant, she was herself again, cool and detached. "I have a question about the motivation here," Chloe said, breaking the silence. Even if Prince Kalen saved her and gave her some money, Lyra would be grateful, yes. She might even pledge her life to him, but she wouldn't fall desperately in love with him over it. I looked at her, and our eyes met for a second. Chloe leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Not unless he gave her a hug in the middle of that storm. A warm hug, something to fight off the cold. Chloe said it with such conviction, as if for a moment she was Lyra, and she knew this to be true. I was stunned, a memory threatening to surface. I pushed it down and spoke. "But that's impossible. Kalen's character at this point is a pampered prince. He might feel pity for a commoner, but he would never, ever hug a muddy stranger who could be dead or alive." Chloe's eyes were dark, and for a moment, they seemed to hold a swirling galaxy. Julian suddenly chimed in. "But it would be fine if it was his guard, right? If Kalen's guard gave her the hug on his behalf, that could work. But why would the guard hug a dying urchin?" Chloe leaned back again, a strange, unreadable expression on her face. "Who knows?" she said, a corner of her mouth twitching. "Maybe out of pity." I stared at her, stunned. I suddenly remembered the year the Crawford family fell from grace. The girl who had everything was suddenly left with nothing, losing her parents overnight. She was like a delicate flower tossed in the wind. I remembered slowly approaching her and gently pulling the heartbroken girl into a hug. Did she think it was pity? I never got an answer. But the scene was changed slightly. In her first meeting in the rain, Chloe's character, Lyra, now received a hug from the wrong person. After the table read, I headed back to my hotel room. As I passed the fire escape, a hand shot out, grabbed my shirt, and pulled me into the darkness. The door was ajar, letting in a sliver of light. My palms began to sweat. I was pressed back against the wall. Chloe was in front of me, the space incredibly tight. All I could smell was her clean, cool scent, like fresh snow. I looked up at her and whispered incredulously, "What are you doing?" She tilted her head up slightly, a small smile playing in her eyes. "You're the one who said we had to pretend not to know each other in public. So this is the only place we can talk, isn't it?" I leaned back uncomfortably, trying to create some space and look more composed, but my chin accidentally brushed against her forehead. The contact was warm and gone in an instant. We both froze for a second. "What is it?" I asked. Someone walked past in the hallway. It sounded like her assistant, muttering about how Chloe was just there a second ago, and now she was gone. I turned back to her and met her dark eyes. The hint of a smile was gone. The sliver of light from the stairwell door fell across her face, a face often called the most beautiful in the industry, making her features look even more profound and captivating. She licked her lips, bracing one hand against the wall next to my head. She had to tilt her head up to bring her face level with mine. She pressed her lips together a few times, as if struggling to find the words. For a moment, I actually thought she might be as nervous as I was. No matter how big the stage or the event, Chloe never got nervous. But here, in the silence of this tiny, empty stairwell, she seemed to be rehearsing her lines over and over in her head before she could speak. She asked softly, "Who would willingly hug someone who's fallen into an abyss?" I looked at her downcast eyes, unable to tell if she was talking about Lyra from the show or about herself. The year Chloe turned 18, she didn't get a glamorous princess birthday party. First, Julian left the country without a word, making the flowers she'd bought to confess her feelings to him useless. Then, The Crawford family went bankrupt. Her father took his own life in prison, and her mother, unable to handle the shock, passed away from a sudden illness. Overnight, the girl who had been showered with praise and flowers lost everything. I searched all over Bay City for her back then, finally finding her in an old alleyway. She was leaning against a crumbling concrete wall as the sun set, the flowers she had been holding scattered in the dirt at her feet. I had found her, but I didn't dare get closer. I wasn't Julian. To her, I was probably just a guy whose name she barely knew, who would want a practical stranger to witness them at their most vulnerable. I don't know what I was thinking. I just looked at her, my heart breaking, and thought that maybe, just maybe, she needed a hug. I had nothing else to offer, but I could offer that. I slowly walked toward her. She was leaning against the wall and glared at me fiercely, but I could see her eyes were red from crying. When she saw it was me, she froze, then silently dropped her gaze back to the flowers on the ground. My heart ached for her. I thought she would tell me to get lost, but she just clenched her jaw, like a small, wounded animal. She turned her face away and covered her eyes with her hand. I could see tears squeezing through her fingers. The girl who had always been so proud was suddenly as fragile as melting snow. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I'd never been so brave in my life. I took a step forward and gently wrapped my arms around her. Don't be sad. I'll always be here for you. I'll always be here for you. Now, at 25, Chloe was asking me who would hug someone who had fallen into an abyss. My palms were damp with sweat. I looked down and said, I don't know. Chloe stepped even closer, a cold, self-mocking look in her eyes. You don't know? Then let me ask you, do you know what pity is, Ethan Hill? Combined with previous sentence, when people see Lyra, covered in mud and about to die, some might offer money to show their pity. Others might offer a hug. So what about you? What were you thinking back then? I froze. She moved closer, her voice a mix of a sigh and a plea, the light catching in her eyes. Tomorrow, for that scene, the first meeting in the ring. They changed the script, and they haven't found anyone to play the part of the person who hugs Lyra. It's just a few seconds of screen time. I want you to do it with me. Don't be scared. I'll guide you. It can't be anyone else. Only you. I studied her face, seeing a hint of desperation in her beautiful eyes. She pleaded, just do this one last thing with me. Fine. I'll walk this part of the road with you one more time. One last time. I quietly agreed. She was so close, her scent filling the small space between us. My heart felt like it was buried in snow, cold and heavy, but it still beat faster for her. I started to leave, and she didn't stop me. Just as my hand reached the doorknob, she called out. I turned around. Chloe's face was mostly in shadow, but her eyes were fixed on me. Ethan Hill, she said quietly. I thought she was going to say more, but all she said was, good night. I tiptoed out of the stairwell, looking left and right as if I'd just committed a crime. I heard Chloe let out a soft laugh behind me. The next day, for the scene of Lyra's first meeting with the prince, because of my new, mysterious role, the director told Julian's makeup artist to get me ready as well. Julian had a private dressing room. I was about to knock when I heard my name mentioned inside. My hand froze in midair. Inside, Julian's assistant was asking, why did you suggest giving him part of your scene? This character just came out of nowhere. Julian gave a non-committal laugh. You really think it was my idea? It was her who. He cut himself off. Never mind. It's just a bit part, not even a real supporting role. Adding it doesn't change anything. It just gives him a clearer taste of what it's like to be a supporting player. I lowered my hand, my expression unchanged. When I turned, I saw Sophia standing right behind me. She had probably heard everything too. I felt a little awkward. I pointed to the door and mouthed, I'll wait. A smile touched Sophia's eyes. She said quietly, pretty calm for someone who just got talked about like that, Mr. Hill. I'm not, I said quietly. I wasn't calm at all. He was right. In the show and in real life, I wasn't even important enough to be a supporting character. By the time we were ready to film, a real downpour had started, saving the crew the trouble of making fake rain. I was playing Prince Kalen's guard. Our carriage was forced to stop in the storm by an obstacle, a dying girl lying in the mud. I rose and pulled back the curtain for the prince to see. The carriage was very close to the girl in the mud. From my angle, I could see the rain collecting in the small hollows on either side of her straight nose. The rain had turned the road to muck, making it difficult to pass. The girl, dressed in rags, was curled in the cold, wet earth, a faint stain of red spreading in the mud around her. A long time ago, a notoriously harsh critic described her acting as breathtakingly alive. Even with no acting experience myself, I was instantly pulled into the scene by Chloe. She became the desperate girl, an urchin pitted only by the relentless rain. Her eyelids fluttered, rain lashing against her wounds and into her eyes. Her face was deathly pale, but she still fought to look up, her gaze meeting mine through the curtain of water. For a second, I thought I could even see the reflection of my yellow guard uniform in her eyes. Behind her, there was nothing but the falling rain. She was an urchin, an outcast, with nothing in the world. The prince's voice came from inside the carriage. "Corbin, what is it?" Her gaze had stunned me, and it took me a moment to recover. I answered, "A dying urchin is blocking the road, my prince. The carriage cannot pass." Lyra's dark hair was matted with mud. She looked up at the carriage, at the curtain that never should have opened for someone like her. She curled her hands in shame and tried to stand, but her legs were broken. She had no choice but to drag herself, inch by inch, toward the side of the road. She collapsed back into the mud without a sound, the rain beating down on her. That single moment struck me with incredible force. I understood why the guard would hug her, who, even at their lowest point, could still hold on to so much pride. Anyone who saw her would have been moved. I thought of Chloe at 18. After her family's collapse, the praise stopped, and the malice began. I didn't see her for a long time after that hug. When I finally found her again, it was at dusk. People said her family had left behind massive debts, and Chloe was having a very hard time. In a novel, it would have been just a few lines of text, but to witness it in person was to see several years of a proud girl's life being crushed. It was the first time I ever heard Chloe speak to someone in that subservient tone, practically begging. The debt collectors were scum. They hired thugs to harass her, a young girl, every single day. So every day, I made sure to get there before her and chase them off. Until one day I lost. I pulled myself up against a wall and staggered out of the alley. Only then did I realize Chloe was standing just on the other side of that wall, hidden in the shadows. I don't know how long she'd been there, watching me, crying without a sound. The sky outside was beautiful, filled with the colors of sunset. She handed me a bandage and then turned and walked away. I followed her from a distance as she walked through the bustling crowds. The street grew dark, the crowds thinned, and then she stopped. It took a long moment before she turned to face me, her eyes fixed on mine. She looked at the bruises on my face and said stubbornly, "How long have you been following me? How much longer are you going to stand there and watch me make a fool of myself?" I looked up at her. "I just wanted to be with you." A corner of her mouth twitched. "I don't need you to," she said coldly. "Do you understand, Ethan Hill?" My eyes stung, and I had to look away. I knew she didn't need my company, but what else could I do? There was nothing else I could do for her. But then her voice softened. "Don't cry. Just leave me alone. Go home." In that instant, the Chloe in front of me merged with the image of Lyra, lying in the mud and rain. I stepped down from the carriage. The rain was cold enough to chill the bones. I gently hugged her, and it felt like I was reaching across time to hug the Chloe from all those years ago. I whispered, "The road ahead is long. Stay alive." The sound of the rain seemed to fade, and all I could hear was her racing heartbeat beneath the cold rain. For Chloe at 18, and for Chloe at 25, the road was so long. The director yelled, "Cut." I was still holding Chloe. An assistant rushed over with an umbrella. I looked down and saw her eyes under her rain-soaked hair, dark and bright and stubborn. A warmth spread through my chest. As I let go, her warm hand brushed against my skin. When I came out of the dressing room after changing, I was surprised to see Sophia waiting for me. She handed me a cup of warm ginger tea. I hesitated for a second. She smiled and said, "To warm you up." I thanked her and took it. It was warm and did help with the chill, but I can't stand the taste of ginger, so I could only take small sips. Sophia was very beautiful, the kind of woman who had a huge female following. I remembered someone once made a fan video shipping her and Chloe, and it went viral for a while. The memory of it almost made me laugh. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" I shook my head, holding back a smile. "Just thinking of something funny." Sophia didn't press the issue. She just smiled and said, "For your first time acting, you did a really good job getting into character." Hearing her say that made me relax a little. I had been worried I would do a terrible job and drag down the quality of the whole show. But I knew, silently, that the only reason I could get into character was because I was seeing the real Chloe in that rain. She didn't have a single line, but every movement she made was heartbreaking. I was still thinking about what Julian had said, about her wanting me in the role. Was he talking about Chloe? But if so, why? The combination of the cold rain and the hot tea was making me drowsy. I was about to say something when I saw Chloe walking toward us, holding a drink. She didn't look happy, and her lips were still pale from the cold. She casually took the half-finished ginger tea from my hands, completely ignoring Sophia, and handed me the drink she was carrying. "Don't force yourself to drink it if you hate ginger. Susan just bought you some hot chocolate." Her actions were familiar, but her gaze was sharp. She stuffed her hands in her pockets and looked at Sophia with an aggressive edge. "Is there something you need, Miss Pierce?" Sophia's smile didn't falter. She glanced at me, then back at Chloe. "Since you two have things to discuss, I'll get going." I watched Sophia walk away, then turned to Chloe with a helpless sigh. "I thought we were supposed to be pretending we don't know each other." Chloe let out a cold laugh, but her voice was laced with grievance. "Fine by me. Ethan Hill, you tell me to act like a stranger, but with her, you're forcing yourself to drink something you hate while you're laughing and chatting." I picked up on her hostility towards Sophia. "Do you two have some kind of history?" Chloe was quiet for a moment, then looked away awkwardly. "No," she added, "not really. She didn't do anything. It's a one-sided thing." She said it with such confidence, too. "Whatever you say, Miss Crawford." During a break in filming, I walked past Sophia. She was watching the first episode of the show on her tablet, paused on the exact frame where the guard hugged Lyra in the ring. The water rolling down Chloe's face looked like tears. Chloe's face was truly a work of art, impossibly beautiful from every angle. Sophia took off her headphones and called me over, pointing to the empty seat next to her. I instinctively glanced around. Sophia laughed softly. "Don't worry, she's not here." Sophia turned to me with a smile. She had a cool, serene aura, playing the Chancellor's daughter in the show and known as an ice queen in real life. But her smile was like a gentle, flowing spring. "She's really hostile toward me," she said. I shook my head. I didn't know why either. Sophia held up her tablet. I leaned in to look and was surprised to see myself on the screen. It was a strange feeling. I didn't realize it had aired already. Sophia hummed in agreement, then said out of the blue, "No one expected her to take the role of Lyra." My enthusiasm suddenly vanished. I looked away and just nodded. Yeah, who would have thought someone as proud as her would be willing to go this far for Julian? I looked off into the distance, where a crowd of crew members and cameras were gathered around Chloe and Julian as they rehearsed a scene. I couldn't see them clearly through the crowd. Sophia followed my gaze. I let out a small, humorless laugh. "It's because of Julian." She suddenly paused, tapping her elegant fingers on the small table. After a moment, she let out a laugh. "Ethan, you really are dense." I turned to look at her. "You can't possibly have missed how differently Chloe treats you, can you?" Sophia said. "It's just like back in college. The entire department knew I had a crush on you, but you were the only one who had no idea." I was stunned. Her words were so unexpected, I didn't know how to respond. She was very direct about it, just touching her forehead and laughing lightly. "It was years ago. Don't look so nervous." I thought about what Julian had said in the dressing room. A character who isn't even a supporting player can't change the story. I shook my head. She wasn't like this before. Now, I trailed off, then added, "She's just been used to having me around for so long that she doesn't want me to leave." Sophia answered patiently, like an upperclassman explaining things to a clueless freshman. "Plenty of people have tried to get close to Chloe over the years. Why are you the only one she's kept around? Ethan Hill, you really need to open your eyes." I couldn't answer her. Sophia changed the subject. "Have you seen the episode? The reviews are all great." I was still lost in thought when they finished filming the scene. Chloe walked toward us, backlit by the set lights, which gave her a golden halo. Her eyes were half-lidded as she gave Sophia and me a cool, indifferent glance. The director, who was thrilled with the last take, saw us and got a sudden burst of poetic inspiration, starting to quote some old poem that played on our names. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks, shot him an icy glare, and the director immediately swallowed his next words. She must have lost interest, because she turned and walked off in a different direction. Sophia tilted her chin toward Chloe's retreating back. "Well, aren't you going to go smooth things over?" I watched her walk away, feeling a little helpless. I shook my head. "No, I'm tired." The rest of the plot stayed pretty much the same. The show was being filmed and aired simultaneously. In real time, we were already filming the part where Prince Kalen was about to seize the throne, but online, only the first episode had been released. I finally saw the finished episode when I went online. The producers had teased Chloe's appearance in the first episode, so the ratings were huge. I turned off the flood of live comments to focus on the show. The first part was mostly set up for Kalen's character and the world, but the episode ended with the scene in the ring. I stared at the screen for a long time, then turned the comments back on and rewatched it. The comments went from a chorus of "My heart breaks for Lyra," and "How could they put Chloe in the mud?" to a hug, combined with previous sentence, "She got a hug. Is this a side ship? I'm shipping them so hard." And Chloe's acting is absolutely incredible. I was watching it on my tablet in the break room. Just as I finished and was about to put it away, a voice said, "You know, people online are really shipping you too." It was Julian, standing in front of me. He must have seen what I was watching. His assistant's voice was sharp. That was supposed to be Julian's scene. It wasn't a pleasant thing to hear. I straightened my back and looked up at them. Julian just smiled at his assistant. It's fine. He's just a minor character with a couple of lines. It's only because Chloe is so popular that people are shipping them. I asked, confused. But you were at the table read, weren't you? If you had a problem with it, why didn't you say so then? Julian probably didn't expect me to talk back. His smile faltered a little. I didn't really care about his petty annoyance. His assistant spoke up again. Whatever. Chloe has a new music video coming out soon, and Julian is the male lead. Who's going to care about this little bit of online buzz then? My hands paused what they were doing. I'd forgotten about that. According to the original story, Chloe was supposed to release a new song, and Julian would be the star of the music video, a move that would launch his career into the stratosphere. I looked down. That was good. Everything was going according to the script. I could make a clean exit, no more second thoughts. On set, Julian and Chloe barely spoke to each other, but who could know the depth of a love that had been hidden for so many years? Just then, I heard a girl's mocking voice. Chloe was leaning against the doorframe, a sneer on her face. Her almond eyes could be full of warmth when she smiled, but right now, they were pure ice. She leaned against the door and asked lazily, "Oh, is that so?" Both Julian and his assistant turned to look at her, their faces paling slightly. "Funny," Chloe said. "I don't remember having a new song." Julian started. Chloe. Chloe barely lifted her eyelids. Her words were ice. "Are we on a first-name basis?" I glanced from Chloe to Julian and back again. Suddenly, Chloe's eyes landed on me, and her face broke into a smile that could melt a frozen river. She held out her hand. "Ethan Hill, are you coming or not?" She told me to wait outside. About a minute later, she came out. I couldn't really hear what was said, but she told me it was all handled. Chloe huffed. "You didn't come to find me, so I had to come find you. But of course, the second I get here, I find you getting bullied, Ethan." It slowly dawned on me that Chloe was defending me. My heart did a little flip, but I still felt the need to remind her. That's Julian Vance. Chloe moved closer, her scent cool like fresh snow. "So what if he is?" I was speechless. What could I say? "He's the guy you were flirting with at the press conference. He's the guy you're willing to play a supporting role for. He's the hero of your life story." In the end, all I could say was, "He's your leading man." Chloe stared at me for a moment, her eyes locked on mine. "No, he's not," she said slowly. She stepped even closer, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Ethan Hill, you asked me if I was just used to having you around. I told you it was never about being used to it. But I want to ask you something too. All those years you stayed by my side, was it all just because you felt sorry for me? You never asked about the press conference. You never asked why I wanted you to play Corbin. You act like some kind of saint, giving a little light to someone in the darkness. And then, just as she's about to climb out, you're ready to walk away without a word." Chloe's eyes were red, and a single tear clung to her lower lashes. It was as if a goddess had suddenly revealed her vulnerability. She suddenly reached out and gave me a brief, feather-light hug that smelled of snow. "Go," she whispered. My eyes stung, and I felt tears welling up. "Chloe," I said, "what if life really is a script? What if you, me, Julian, Sophia, we're all just characters playing our parts? Our fates were decided from the very beginning. My life isn't going to be decided by some script. Please, believe me. Even if it is a script, I have the power to change it." And Chloe did have the power to change the script. At least, she did with the show. With just that one hug in the rain and her performance in the following scenes, without a single extra line of dialogue, she made the entire audience imagine a complex, epic romance between her character and Corbin. Back on set, I was sitting by the monitors. Chloe was scrolling through her phone, not looking up, but a pleased smile played on her lips. I glanced at her a few times before she finally, slowly, looked over at me. "What?" she asked, a hint of her old imperious tone returning. I turned away. "Nothing." But she brought her phone over and showed me the screen. It was filled with comments from fans about Corbin and Lyra. The sheer number of exclamation points gave me a headache, but I couldn't help but smile. She tilted her head, her profile absolutely perfect. I brought up the press conference. Chloe gave me a sidelong glance, finally decided to ask about it. She shrugged. "I was just testing to see how my fans would react to me dating someone." I pressed her, and she turned to look at me seriously. "I realized a long time ago that Julian's existence was a big deal to you. If you really thought I was in love with him, you should have stepped closer to see the truth for yourself, not run away. If you had, you would have realized that for all these years, you've been at the very center of my world." The noise of the set faded away. I suddenly realized this world wasn't just words on a cold page, and our destinies weren't set in stone. I wasn't just a supporting character in someone else's story. I was the lead in my own. If I didn't even have the courage to reach out, how could I ever say I was truly in love? The King's Command was a massive hit, with huge ratings and critical acclaim. When my work on the show was done, I decided to go back to Bay City. As I was finishing my packing, Sophia knocked on my door to say goodbye. She made some polite small talk, and then, as she was leaving, she leaned against the doorframe and said, "You know, I actually saw Chloe once, a long time ago." I waited for her to explain, confused. She looked a little apologetic. It was at our college anniversary festival. After the event, when we all went out to eat. That was the night I was going to tell you how I felt, but everyone was teasing us. I saw her across the room. She looked at me for a second, and then just left. There was such a sad look in her eyes. It was only after she was gone that I realized she must have been there to see you. I never told you. I suddenly remembered what Chloe looked like at 20. I found her under a streetlight once, her hands trembling so much she couldn't light her cigarette. She looked at me with those cold eyes and took a step back, her shoulders slumped, and asked if I was there because I pitied her. Only now did I realize she had come looking for me that night. Chloe wasn't on set today. I was already on the train when I got a message from her. It was just a question mark. I saw the typing indicator appear and disappear for a long time before a new message finally came through. Travel safe. A moment later, another message arrived. Wait for me. I replied, okay. The first thing I did when I got home was go to the old corner spot for clam chowder. The owner recognized me. She smiled and asked, "How come you're not with your girlfriend today?" My girlfriend? Yeah, that pretty girl. After you left for college, she used to come in here all the time. I took a bite of my food. The shop had music playing, and it happened to be one of Chloe's recent songs. You're at the center of my world, yet you don't seem to notice a thing. My greatest triumphs are a crown for you. But who could know this love that asks for nothing in return? I suddenly realized that maybe, for all these years, I wasn't the only one doing the following. The King's Command continued to be a huge hit, releasing 2 new episodes a week. I was still feeling down, so I went for a walk at sunset. I happened to look up and see a huge LED screen on the side of a building, advertising Chloe's concert in Bay City, just 1 week away. My phone rang, and I answered it. The person on the other end was silent for a long time. I tilted my head back to look at the giant screen. On the poster, Chloe's eyes were half closed, her expression cool and distant. The lighting was perfect. It was impossible to look away. At the top, in large letters, were the words, Northern Lights. After a long pause, her voice came through the phone. Ethan Hill. I smiled. Congratulations on wrapping the show, Miss Crawford. I thought for a moment, then gathered my courage and added, Corbin knows that Lyra loves him. I hung up. Since her debut, Chloe had always been intensely private. Despite her fame, she was very low-key, never doing reality shows or anything similar. But then, a video suddenly surfaced. It was a grainy, low-resolution video from my college anniversary festival. She was standing at the very edge of the crowd, captured for just a moment by a panning camera. She was staring intently at the stage, her expression a rare mix of exhaustion, relaxation, and deep affection. The clip was only a few seconds long, but it caused a massive stir. Fans were dissecting it, and by tracing the clues, they were getting dangerously close to figuring out who I was. Chloe's social media account, which she hadn't touched in ages, finally posted a single word. Shoo. Don't say any more. Her fans seemed to understand. They all went quiet, as if the entire world was conspiring with her. Older videos of Chloe started to resurface. Clips of her in tiny, insignificant roles. Footage of her being bullied and ostracized by her former bandmates. People were shocked to realize that this brilliant star had also had times when her light had dimmed, when she had been lost and alone. Who was the one who picked her up and brushed off the dust? Had she fought so hard all these years just for the chance to stand tall again? But now that the day had come, was she, like Lyra, finding it impossible to take that final step forward? When the night of Chloe's concert arrived, I bought a ticket and filed into the arena with thousands of people who loved her. The stadium was a sea of glowing signs with her name on them. I stood in the middle of the crowd, listening to them sing along to her songs, feeling their love for her, and a sense of peace washed over me. The arena went dark, and there was only her on the stage, bathed in light. It was the first time I had ever heard Chloe sing the full version of her song, Northern Lights. From the line, the Northern Lights descend into the polar night, to embrace her at 18, to the chorus, my greatest triumphs are a crown for you. The entire stadium was silent, listening. She looked just like she did in her most famous photograph. The light hit one side of her face, leaving the other in shadow. She should have looked like a cold, untouchable goddess. But as she played the piano, her expression was nothing but soft. And so, tonight, the goddess fell to earth, half vibrant, half silent. She was the most dazzling light in the arena, distant and stunning, and she was singing about her northern lights. After the song ended, the arena was silent for a long time. That kind of emotion is contagious, and everyone was moved. Chloe suddenly let out a small laugh, breaking the silence. "Sorry, everyone," she said. "What I said at the press conference for the King's Command a while back, I wasn't being entirely truthful. My favorite line from the show wasn't that long speech." She looked down, a small smile on her face. "But one part was true. I do hope that my name will be remembered alongside his." The implications were huge. First, she was denying any romance with Julian. Second, she was confirming she really was in love with someone. The crowd erupted. Chloe's gaze swept across the crowd, passing over my section. I knew there was no way she could see me among so many people, but I held my breath anyway. "He is my northern lights. He once asked me if I would have fallen for anyone who showed me kindness during my darkest time." Her answer was firm and clear. She looked out over the silent sea of people, her head tilted up slightly, her eyes shining with unshed tears, and somehow, her gaze found mine. "No," she said. "No one else could have gotten close to me. It could only have been you. It had to be you. It could only have been you. It had to be you. Thank you for coming into my life, my northern lights. From 18 to 25, I have loved you most of all. I have only ever loved you." She was sharing her spotlight with me. Chloe paused for a long moment. The audience was buzzing, convinced that he must be in the crowd. But then Chloe turned away from the microphone. "Thank you all for coming tonight. But please, don't try to find out who he is. My success can be his crown, but it cannot be his burden." And finally, for Uncrossable Hill, it seems I've found a way across after all. The crowd was silent for a beat, and then it exploded. The hashtag Chloe Confesses shot to #1 trending worldwide. The corner chowder spot was still open. As I walked in, I saw 2 bellflowers lying on my usual table. The owner saw me and smiled. "Hey kid, you just missed your girlfriend. She left these for you." I raised my eyebrows in surprise, but I resisted the urge to run out and find her, and instead slowly finished my bowl of chowder. After I paid, I picked up one of the flowers. The sky was dark now. Bay City was cool at night by the ocean. The streets were empty, and the sea breeze messed up my hair, but my heart was calm. I figured if I just kept walking, I would find her eventually. After all these years, what was a few more minutes? I walked all the way to the edge of the beach. The evening wind was gentle. I turned, and there she was, walking toward me, carrying 2 cans of beer. She was wearing a simple white dress, and since we were alone, she had taken off her mask and sunglasses. She walked quickly, the bright Bay City moon hanging in the sky behind her. My emotions were surging like the tide, yet I felt as calm as the ocean's surface. It felt like I had been waiting for this moment for a lifetime. She looked down, and I found I had no words. She pulled a sparkler from her pocket and lit it, her eyes soft in its glow. She handed it to me. "For you." All of her usual boldness was gone. She looked at me, her expression serious, a blush creeping up her ears. It was like she was 18 again, cautious and full of joy. "I love you," she said. "I know," I said. "Me too," I said. "It feels like I've traveled through time just to meet you." Her fingers laced through mine, warm and dry, like finding spring in a hidden corner of the world. I leaned down and gave her a kiss that was as soft and cool as the moonlight. After all these years of loving her, my wish had finally come true. I always thought I was just a supporting character in her story, but I never knew that all this time, she had been quietly keeping me in her heart, year after year. You, too, must be someone's northern lights.